Hello, I'm JD. I'm the Director of Programs and Scholarships here at the Pat Tillman Foundation. And on behalf of the entire foundation, welcome to this information session about what it means, what it takes to become a Tillman Scholar. I'm the Director of Programs and Scholarships here, and I'm also a former student veteran myself, veteran of the United States Army, and currently the Director of Programs and Scholarships here. Couldn't be here, couldn't be prouder to be part of a remarkable team that serves a remarkable community of military veterans, active duty service members, and military spouses who are all committed to a life of service in the future and making a positive impact in this world. Our point for today is really to provide some information to really get ready for the application season and the application window for this remarkable opportunity that will open next week on the 1st of February. But as we get started, let's start with some introductions. I've already introduced myself, but I'm more than happy to turn things over to one of my great teammates and colleagues, our scholarships manager, Tina Bruenning. Tina, take it away.
Hi, I'm Tina Bruenning, the scholarships manager at the foundation. I joined the foundation in 2015. Essentially, I manage all things scholarship related, from fielding applicant questions to the tool, managing the application tool that we utilize, making sure that's running smoothly during the process, the selection cycle, our partnerships that we have with our university partners, onboarding of the new class of Tillman Scholars, and managing the scholars throughout their time in school and all their reporting requirements. I'm going to pass it over to Tillman Scholar, Rob Faulk.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Faulk. I am a 2016 Tillman Scholar. When I applied to the Tillman Scholar program, I was pursuing a doctorate in physical therapy at the University of St. Augustine. At the time, I was active duty Army. It's good to meet you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bridgette Bell. I'm a 2017 Tillman Scholar, also active duty Army. I'm currently pursuing my PhD in clinical psychology at Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. I'll turn it over to Megan.
Hello, everyone. I'm a 2017 scholar and a military spouse. I earned my master's in public health with an emphasis in global health at University of Washington, and now I serve as an infectious disease public health advisor.
Hey, everyone. My name is Akil Iyer. I am a 2019 Tillman Scholar, currently pursuing a MBA and public policy degree. And prior to coming to grad school, I served in the Marine Corps as an infantry and special operations officer.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you obviously to the remarkable members of our staff, particularly the Tillman Scholars that we have here. We're going to be sure to reserve some time during the hour that we have for this information session at the end, just to allow intensive question and answers about that. And being able to take those questions directly to our staff members, directly to Tillman Scholars who have experienced the application process and who live what it means to be a Tillman Scholar every day is really at the heart of what we do and our intent here this afternoon. Now, before that, however, I would like to take just a few minutes to really discuss this phenomenal opportunity that our foundation offers military veterans, active duty service members, members of the Reserve and the National Guard, as well as military spouses. Now, to be sure, there are myriad opportunities for scholarships, for resources that help support higher education, of which you can take advantage. And I would encourage everyone to explore all of those opportunities that might appeal to you, your interests, your values. That said, if you are interested in pursuing higher education, and if you are convinced that the best years of your service still lie in front of you, and if you're also committed to joining a diverse community of like-minded leaders who themselves have dedicated their lives to making a positive impact in communities around the world, then please, please, please reach out to us and strongly consider the opportunities that the Pat Tillman Foundation offers. As many of you know, in 2002, Pat Tillman himself proudly put a lucrative NFL career on hold He put that career with the Arizona Cardinals on hold to serve his country. And family and friends established this foundation following his death in April 2004 while serving with the 75th Ranger Regiment in Afghanistan. This foundation is created. It was created to honor Pat's legacy of leadership, his legacy of service. And to meet that legacy, to perpetuate it, this foundation invests. We invest in military veterans and their spouses through academic scholarships, professional and leadership development opportunities, as well as the immersion into a network of like-minded, high-potential veterans and military spouses. And in doing so, in making those investments, this foundation, the Pat Tillman Foundation, contributes directly to the building of a diverse community of leaders committed to service to others. Think about that for a second. The Pat Tillman Foundation exists to build and support, to unite and empower a diverse community of leaders committed to service to others. It's a community of veterans, active duty service members, military spouses who all care deeply about their own communities, who believe that their best years of service still lie in front of them in the future, and who are passionate, absolutely passionate about making a positive impact in the world. This is a community. We seek to build a community that's based on these values, values that Pat's friends and family selected when they started this foundation that best represented his legacy. And this foundation is also building a community that is the living legacy of a remarkable and inspirational human being, one that did live a life focused on passion. But it's also a community that's comprised of remarkable and inspirational veterans, service members, and spouses in their own right. So we'll take a few minutes this evening and we'll highlight what it takes to join that community, as well as highlight what it means to be a Tillman Scholar. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll also be sure to save time for some questions. Now, before moving on, Tina, is there anything you would like to add?
Not at this time, Judy.
Awesome. And also, before proceeding any further, however, I do want to emphasize that one of the bottom lines we would like someone to leave this presentation with is this: the most compelling applications we see, and we've seen a lot of them, but the most compelling applications tell a story. It's a compelling story of these values that are here, a story of service, scholarship, humble leadership, and impact. So if you want to be a part of this most remarkable community, perhaps one of the most remarkable community of veterans, service members, and military spouses that exists, think about the most compelling story of your service, your scholarly goals, your humble leadership, and the impact you want to have. Think about the most compelling story you can tell, and that is how you should approach applying for this opportunity. Now, let's start with some of the basics. What is PTF looking for? Perhaps a more important way to consider that question is, what does the community of Tillman Scholars expect of each other? Now, in terms of our mission, we select remarkable service members, veterans, and military spouses as they are looking to begin another chapter of public and private sector leadership. And Tillman Scholars have the opportunity to earn more than just a prestigious military scholarship. They earn this opportunity to become a part of an extended family, a network of leaders that are all geared to making an impact. Now, in terms of the basic eligibility requirements, they're pretty straightforward, and you can see them here. They're also clearly established within our application itself and on our website. And I would encourage you to go routinely to our website to learn more about this opportunity. But I want to be very, very clear when it comes to our selection criteria. And in many ways, those selection criteria should look familiar because they mirror the foundation's organizational values we just showed to you. And at the end of the day, a series of selection committees will review and assess your application with an eye specifically towards these organizational values that really reflect much of who Pat was. So in short, the Pat Tillman Foundation, our university partners, will take a rigorous look at what is a long application with the goal of continuing to add to this community of leaders who are committed to serving others. And again, I want to emphasize the results of that rigorous selection process, a process that begins in March and will last through early June. The results of that, which include a scholarship, these professional development opportunities, which will highlight an inclusion in the scholar community, they are not gifts. On the contrary, we actually consider them to be important investments in excellent and leadership potential for the future. Key things to remember. Tina, anything else you would like to add?
Not at this time. Thanks, JD.
Sure thing, Tina. Now, it also goes without saying that crafting an effective application, focusing in on this application, is the key requirement to enter this remarkable community. And the time is coming to be able to really move out and do so. Our application will open on February 1st, 2020. And as I mentioned, 2021, excuse me. And as I mentioned previously, those most compelling applications we see tell this compelling story. It needs to be a clear story. It needs to be inspiring. It needs to be compelling and focus in on those values of service, scholarship, humble leadership, and impact. So again, if you want to be a part of this remarkable community, think about how you can use all these different elements that are within this application to tell that compelling story. And added to that, I would also strongly emphasize that interested applicants really focus in on a strong, clear impact statement within their essays. Make it crystal clear to all the different reviewers that could look at your application so they know exactly what you want to do, what field you want to apply your impact to, and how do you want to improve either your community or a series of communities that are there. Be candid, be clear about what you want to do and the impact you want to make. That's a really important component to keep in mind. Now, another important element of application preparation also involves just effective time management. What we have seen is that the average amount of time that selected Tillman scholars will have spent preparing an application is approximately 2 to 2.5 weeks. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as this February application window approaches. Now, obviously, the essays, the resume, the character recommendation are very, very critically important components of this application. But there are also other important components within there. But I would particularly focus on those components right now and throughout the application process. And I would also recommend keeping your audience in mind. By the end of the selection process, which as I mentioned earlier, lasts from March until June, up to 5 different committees and up to 25 different reviewers will read and evaluate your application. So as you keep that in mind, in summary, here are a couple of other successful application techniques. And the first is revise. And when you think you've done revising, probably revise some more. Throughout that revision process, I would encourage you to ask others, particularly those who know you very, very well, to review your essays. Make sure that they provide you feedback and you have time to incorporate that feedback so you can really convey what you are passionate about and the place that you want to have that clear impact statement, how you want to apply that within your application. Additionally, take the time to talk with your recommender. Have a discussion about where their input will fit into your story, and take advantage of the full month that you have to ensure that your recommender gets that notification early on so they can complete the recommendation form prior to you submitting your application as well. You want to maximize the time that they have to be able to provide the best possible recommendation as well. So please give your recommender enough time. And other key things to remember, visit your campus writing center, visit your campus fellowships office, and work with the different points of contact you could have on your campus to make sure that your application is the best that it can possibly be. Again, Tina, anything else that you would like to add on this particular piece, particularly when we look at an application that's so important with such a small selection rate as well?
Yeah, just a few things that I would like to add, JD. Thank you. One, so you know, on average, about a third of our 60 chosen Tillman scholars have applied 2 or more years. So if you're going into the selection cycle and you've applied in the past, pull out those old essays that you may have completed and, begin from that point. That's just a helpful tip there. The resources you have on campus, definitely make sure you're utilizing those resources on campus, your writing center, your career center, your fellowship offices, in helping you write and rewrite those essays, working on the resume, updating your resume. Your character recommendation piece, that person is not writing a letter of recommendation. However, they're going to be answering specific questions that we are asking of them. So this person should know you well, know what you're working on, where your future impact is going to be, and bringing all those goals of yours together, having a conversation with that person prior to the application opening and you entering their name. Have a conversation with them, let them know what you're applying for, guide them to our website, have them read some of the bios, just so they have a good understanding of this opportunity that you're applying for. Again, as JD mentioned, when the application does open and you're working through those eligibility, after those prompts, you're going to get the rest of the tasks. It is a very lengthy application. We acknowledge it. There's about 19 tasks in total, but I do suggest going down to that character recommendation piece, getting their name and their email and how you know them entered in, and sending that off. They will then get an email from us asking them to complete these questions on your behalf. Then once it's complete, you'll get the email stating it's complete. You cannot submit your application until all the tasks are done and complete. And then lastly is also, if you already haven't been to our website, utilizing all the resources we have, which, we'll talk about, but just making sure you're going to our website, reading our scholars' bios, what they're working on, how do you relate and fit into that group of scholars.
No, thank you. Thank you for that, Tina. That's a great point about, again, just the fact that there's a recommender form and not a letter of recommendation that can be prepared for that. But again, Tina knows of what she speaks and brings with her a lot of wisdom and insight on that. So again, thank you for each of those points of insight as well. Now, when you consider what it means to be a Tillman Scholar, I would continue to emphasize and ask you to consider really these three primary benefits, which are the three key elements of our scholar program. And first, it is a substantial scholarship amount, right? We provide on average around a $10,000 a year annual scholarship that can cover any study-related expenses. That could be tuition and fees, it could be books, but it could also be other living expenses for scholars that are pursuing either undergraduate, graduate, or professional degrees as a full-time student at a US-based institution. That is, I think, a significant benefit that's there. Secondly, we also provide continuing professional development opportunities and leadership development opportunities to scholars even after they complete their degree. So whether those are funding opportunities to attend workshops, conferences, different skill building sessions, whether that is providing Tillman Scholars with speaking opportunities at some different conferences that have included South by Southwest, the Aspen Ideas Festival, as well as our own events. PTF is constantly looking for different opportunities where we can amplify the impressive work that Tillman Scholars accomplish. And that's an important component that will last throughout a Tillman Scholar's entire career and entire life, even beyond the time when they are complete with their degree. And that third element is what you see sort of in the middle of the slide, this global community. You see the image that's there, right? This community in many ways is nothing short than an incredible family. Broad in the fields of expertise that Tillman Scholars are pursuing, the community and its ties run deep. And this community provides extraordinary support. It provides a group of cohesion that can make an inspirational difference, not only in your life, but in the lives of those you seek to impact and support. Importantly, as we've mentioned previously, the scholarship, these professional development opportunities, inclusion in this Tillman Scholar community, They are not gifts. We consider them important investments in excellence and leadership potential for the future. But don't just take that from me. We're actually going to take a brief moment to allow the Tillman Scholars that have joined us here today to describe what being a Tillman Scholar means to them and some other points of insight that they have gained through their own process of both applying as well as viewing applications to become a part of this remarkable community. So with that, I'm more than happy to hand the screen over to Tillman Scholar Rob Faulk. Rob, the screen, the floor is all yours, my friend.
Thanks, JD. So as JD and Tina both mentioned, the number one thing for me as a Tillman Scholar is the team, the extended family. You know, the scholarship is the smallest part of the puzzle. I assure you, you'll have a team of individuals that you know, both at the foundation specifically, but all the other Tillman Scholars that want nothing more than to be helpful to you, to each other, and their plan and the goals they already had set for themselves and for all. I strongly recommend, as JD and Tina both mentioned, you really take some time and lay out your story as opposed to focusing on why you want to pursue the specific degree. My recommendation is that you talk about how that degree is in between you and your future of helping others, hopefully. But by far, this is truly a family that which is saying the least. Good luck.
So I'll follow and answer the same question. I was listening to JD and Tina as well, remembering the application process. And I think what stands out to me is being a Tillman Scholar meant for me not waiting until I took off the uniform to achieve the growth and the healing and the additional impact that I wanted to achieve out of the Army. So what does that mean when it comes to building your resume and writing your essay and choosing your recommender? It's finding the person and finding the highlights from your career that actually speak not just to your time in the military or supporting as a spouse, but your impact out. So I hear a lot of people ask the question, well, if I only was in for a year, or if I was only in for a certain amount of time. And what I love is the scholars do not sit back and compare how long we were in, what you did when you were in, whether you were a spouse or not, or what field you served, because what we care more about is the goals that we're trying to achieve. So making sure that that leaps off the page in every aspect is extremely important. I'm very grateful to the foundation for allowing me to step away from active duty temporarily and still have opportunities to support myself through school. But it is definitely the network that's come out of it that has been so much more impactful. So again, just keep that in mind. Like, how can you translate everything that you're achieving and striving to achieve into an intersection between why you joined or why you're supporting the military and what you're trying to achieve? That by far is the best way to so-called sell yourself to the foundation. Good luck.
I'll take it from there. A lot of what I have to share is mimics both what Rob and Bridgette have said. I knew as a spouse I wanted to serve in my own way, and so I've built my career around public service as a public health practitioner. And during my application process, while I'm proud of my partner and what he does, his service is not a reflection of me. So I just told that story and how I wanted to present to my community. And like you said, Rob, being a Tillman Scholar, the monetary part is the smallest part. Building the community and the friendship and the mentorship all into one revolving and evolving package is really what stands out for me the most. As a first generation student, I found grad school to be very intimidating, and applying and becoming a scholar really helped me along with the pathway there. I couldn't have done it without that. And for me, I've had a chance to sit on the board to choose the next incoming scholars. And for what always stands out for me is that character recommendation. what others have to say about you and what you put out into the world and your leadership or whatever your path may be it speaks volumes. And so I think finding the right recommender for you is very invaluable. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about our partner schools. Akil, I'll give it over to you.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks, Bridgette and Rob. All amazing points about the fellowship, and certainly ones that I resonate with as well. Really, only I think one additional aspect to add to what was already mentioned. So many amazing points about the community, and that's I think there's something truly unique about having a community of fellow veterans, spouses who are engaged across multiple disciplines that is also not within your own school, and it's sort of this national network. I know I personally in grad school have felt this sort of tendency. It's really easy to stay in your school bubble and focus on your specific academic interests. But I think really having this national network of fellow Tillman scholars helping and supporting you in your impact, what you wrote in that essay or what you will be writing as you prepare for the application, I think is huge. I know it certainly has given me a different perspective that may not be resident within my own school, but also just an understanding of how the ecosystem fits together, even if a different fellow is pursuing a different academic endeavor. It's great to have that shared community across the nation.
And each of the Tillman scholars, wonderful, I think, great pieces of complementary advice there, right? You know, be it either trying to tie your degree to that impact, as Rob mentioned, the focus on the future and what you want to do next, as Bridgette mentioned, you know, the thought required to have the right recommender speak on your behalf that Megan emphasized, as well as this multidisciplinary and multi-institutional perspective to keep in mind that Akil mentioned, all I think really important components. So before going to question and answers, the final piece that I would like to emphasize is something that Tina mentioned a little bit before, but just different resources you can find on our website. And our website has actually been recently redesigned to really put a strong emphasis on resources for applicants. You can go to the sites that you see here on this particular slide to learn and to continue to have different stimuli to allow you to think of what these big questions mean, right? You know, you can sort of see that what makes a Tillman scholar. You can take what we're talking about today, put it in this context as well to really get yourself prepared. The additional piece, we have a YouTube site for the foundation, and on that we have a series of short videos that are also an additional components of resources for you to be able to use. Some of them are very technical in terms of some of the application requirements that are there, right? There's a video that defines the specific documents that you might need to upload if you to confirm your military service, right? Again, it's a specific question, but that's just one example of any resources that we have, all designed to allow you to make the best application possible, the most compelling story as a component possible. Again, taking all of that advice that you just heard from some remarkable scholars that are across the board. So with that, we got a couple of questions starting to populate. And so one of the first one is that I'm currently applying to several colleges for this fall, but I haven't been accepted yet. Can I still apply? Actually, we're going to throw that one to Tina. Tina has to deal with this question quite a bit. Tina, your thoughts on this particular one, someone who's applying to multiple colleges?
Yes, that's a really good question. So if you are, this is a two-part question actually. So yes, you can still apply. And if you are not applying to one of our university partnered institutions, you should then list, if you haven't been accepted to any of the schools that you currently are applying for, list your top choice. There'll be a drop-down box. So in that drop-down box, list your top choice institution there. And then there'll be a text box, I think like the second question down from there. In that box, you should enter in all the institutions you're applying to if you've been accepted to those institutions or not, and if your expected date to know when you'd be accepted. And so if you have not yet been accepted by the time the application closes, we do need updates from you throughout the process. If you've been updated, you could just, and the instructions will be in the tool, to send over any acceptances that you've had by April 1st. That just keeps you competitive in the process. That doesn't remove you from the process, but it just keeps you competitive in knowing that you have been accepted to an institution and I'm planning to attend there that fall. If you are applying to a university partnered institution and non-university partnered institutions, it is suggested, well, we can have another conversation about that. So I would suggest actually emailing me at scholarships@Pat-Tillman Foundation so we can discuss that a little bit further, but you definitely can still apply even if you're applying to multiple institutions.
No, that's a great piece. And again, we know that could change as our selection process goes through April and May. Just pay attention. If Tina asks you a question, respond to it and respond to it quickly. But we want to try and be as responsive to you as well, just to keep that up. Our second question, actually, Bridgette, I'm going to point this one in your direction. And it's about, the scholar bios that are on the website, right? And that are impressive to say the least. How can one compare to all of that? And what advice do you have for those of us that are still trying to figure out how you can make that impact?
A phenomenal question. It's one that we've all asked. And I believe if you put 3 scholars in a room, we've all had those moments where we feel very intimidated by each other, but it's a good feeling of intimidation. So I would say lean into that feeling, despite what it may seem like when you read some of our bios or you read about even Pat Tillman himself. You are uniquely designed and created to go after whatever that impact question is that's brewing in your head. I love the way that the person who asked the question said, still trying to figure out how to make an impact. The applications I read or those who I mentor through the process who share their struggles with writing with me sometimes are not capable of going beyond the I want to make an impact to getting to the how I want to make an impact. Those are the essays that stand out. Saying that you want to do great things, but not how you want to achieve them only gets you so far. So I would say practice your 30-second elevator speech and then turn that into an essay. It should have metrics. It should be almost something that may seem unachievable, but you have to say, here's how I'm going to achieve it. So again, lean into that initial tension around how do I really put in words what I want to do. And I'll briefly say, my goal is to end suicide in the military. That's a byproduct of seeing it so often in my service. So it was a point of contention for me that I channeled into my essays. And so it may be painful, but if you lean into how do I pick apart the problem and then figure out the how of my solution, trust that you will find exactly the right words to say. So thanks for asking that question.
No, and Bridgette, thank you for a wonderfully beautiful response. Any other reactions from some of the scholars? Tina, your thought? Or
first, I'd like the scholars to go if they wanted to add anything to that.
I'd love to. Just to
go
start.
for it, Megan.
As an incoming scholar, before I'd even heard of the Pat Tillman Foundation, I was presented this by my mentor. And reading through those, I remember that feeling of being overwhelmed, like I don't fit in here. And then even being accepted, I had that feeling so much so that I think I don't want to speak for every scholar, but most have had a feeling similar to that. So much so that we've had talks on it. And whether it's imposter syndrome or whichever word you want to call it, we've all felt that way. And there's nothing more uplifting in this community because they look at you and find everything good about you. And then the person next to you will be telling your story for you because they're so invested in who you are. And it may seem overwhelming at first because everyone on there looks so amazing, but it's part of what the community is about. And so
Perfect. Thanks, Megan. Any other responses? And then Tina, I think you had something to add as well.
Yeah, the only other thing I would like to add, and JD, I know you mentioned this earlier, is about telling your story. And the essays are only 400 words each. And so really that revise, I'm going back to that, and having those people who know you and know you best in your work help you in proofreading those and giving you their honest feedback on those essays. So that is one piece. And then also is your story, is, I say this often, is thinking of, when completing this application, is thinking of it as a timeline, and each piece in each task that you're working on is that dot of you and your story on the timeline. The resume is a piece, your character recommender is a piece, your military service is a piece, your essays. So all of those dots are going to, complete your story to the reviewers. All of them. And like JD mentioned, there's going to be upwards of 25 people reviewing your application throughout the whole process. And so in keeping the attention of all of those reviewers through each stage of the reviewing. So thinking of, yes, your essays is the biggest bulk of, the reviewers getting to read and learn about you. But each piece contributes to that.
Go for it, Akil. Yep.
Thanks, JD. And Tina, Bridgette made some great comments about the essays. And I thought one piece that I know personally, I know I would have wished I would have known when I was applying, and that's the Tillman essays are not the same as your graduate school or undergraduate essays. And I think it's really important to really, the questions are really deep, and in some ways might differ from the questions that are being asked as you're applying to your institution. What that means is really start with a blank sheet of paper. I know I felt the tendency, or sort of, hey, why don't I just try and start with the essays that I've already been working on, and realize actually that was counterproductive. That actually starting with the blank sheet, going through the thought process that Bridgette and Tina described about what your true impact is, how to tie that to your service and what you want to continue serving going forward, I think is at least one way to sort of approach the all too difficult but definitely doable essay process.
No, phenomenal advice all the way around on that. In fact, I'm going to skip ahead to one of the other questions that we have, because in some ways it might tie back to Megan, one of the points that you brought up earlier of how a mentor sort of introduced this to you. But one of our other questions is not only thanking everybody for your time and congratulations on becoming scholars yourselves, but did anyone have mentors or thought partners within the scholar community for your specific areas of interest as you were beginning to apply? I'll throw that open to any of the scholars that we have here.
I can take that if you'd like.
Yeah.
I did not have a mentor through Pat Tillman Foundation. I had a mentor through my undergraduate program who helped me find scholarships and manage my way through school and into grad school. However, once I received my scholarship, you kind of meet the community or the other scholars, and you end up pairing off and receive mentorship from them. And even if they're not in your specific field, I ended up gravitating towards other people in public health. It's just kind of what happens when you get together. But then fast forward to 2019, I was paired with an incoming scholar who was in the same field, and I got to welcome him into our group and kind of show him what it looks like to be a scholar, and asked him how we could help each other. And now we are great colleagues. So there's ways to grow within that.
I can add to that. Similar to Megan, I didn't have necessarily a formal mentorship pipeline when I was applying, but I did comb through every single Tillman Scholar bio. I sorted them, I searched them. I go to Jackson State, which is a historically Black college. And so I was specifically seeking out people of similar backgrounds or similar programs. And what I ended up finding were people who went to my same undergrad. And I reached out to them instead and got over that initial feeling of overwhelming, how do I write this, through their support. And then also just some thoughts about how to look beyond my field of study in my essay and talk about interdisciplinary topics and things like that. So I sought out my mentors. And then I think the greatest takeaway for me was getting questions answered around who to write my recommendation letter. And so through mentorship, I decided to ask someone who knew me both as a student and as a soldier. And so I think going through that process of asking people, how did they decide who write their essay? What are some of the things that they went through in getting a recommendation? Those questions getting answered from current scholars was extremely, extremely helpful. So definitely look us up. I mean, if you see someone on the website and you reach out to them, let them know that you're looking for mentorship, and I guarantee someone will definitely help you with that.
No, great points. And in fact, Bridget's comment there about her recommender actually prompts me to want to ask sort of a question. If we could go down line with each of the 4 scholars that we have, Bridget already sort of outlined it in terms of who you chose to be your recommender. Bridget outlined, again, this person that was who knew her both as a soldier as well as a student, as a scholar. I think that's obviously the convergence that you're looking for. I'm just curious of the others as well. Bridget, if you want to add to that, just in terms of, and then go down the line as well.
Yeah, I'll add quickly. So Colonel Wayne Green, U.S. Army, he was my battalion commander when I was a company commander. And then we ended up both stationed at West Point when I was teaching there. And so he literally knew me in the hardest job I had ever done in the military, not just from the perspective of working with soldiers, but also supporting family members. That was extremely important. And then years later, I ran into him at West Point, and he was there as the chief of staff. I was working as an instructor. And so when I reached out to him, I specifically said, sir, I need you to comment on things beyond the military. I don't want to just come off as a soldier, as a former commander, as an instructor. Can you please make sure I'm well-rounded in how you speak of me? And so that was extremely important. And I thank him to this day for helping me just not appear one-dimensional. So I'll pass it on, I think, to Rob.
Yeah, go for it. Thank you, Bridget. Rob, all yours.
So I didn't have a mentor. I'll get back to the recommendation letter, but I didn't have a mentor, but there was a former unit member who applied to the Tillman Foundation, and he was a scholar, and he told me about the program. And then, like Bridget, once I went to the website and looked at all the stories, I told him there's no way I could apply to that. That's not going to work. And after a few months of harassment and Jedi mind tricking me into it, I did actually go to my best friend. He's also a physical therapist in the Army, in the military. He was about maybe 4 or 5 years ahead of me in his career. He was an officer. Of course, I'm enlisted, but he had a true passion for taking care of the guys like myself. He has a true passion for his family, and he knows my family. He knows me personally, and so that individual I mentioned who recommended I apply to the program in the beginning. He did make it clear that don't make the mistake of what most military letters of recommendation look for. You're looking for the highest ranking person you can find to make it strong, right? And so he made it clear that the Tillman Foundation wants to know you, as opposed to what's the highest level of rank or what's the highest. Luckily, I had a good friend who was willing to speak about me as opposed to just my career. That's it.
No, perfect. Thanks for that, Rob. Megan, your recommender conversations that you had with that individual, and how did you go about that decision on for your application?
So I forget the video here. I keep speaking about the same mentor that I was really fortunate to have in my undergraduate who helped me through becoming a researcher and the whole process of what does grad school look like for me. It was never in even my wildest dreams to go to school, let alone receive scholarships for it. So she presented me with this and with PTF and how I should go about my application. And she had already written my recommendation by going through part of the application process and just said that this is where you belong. And I think it's so important to have someone like that in your corner who just, again, when I said what you put out in the world speaks volumes, she wrote that for me. And I felt very, very fortunate to have someone like that. So, I mean, even as you move through whatever part of your education you go through, having that type of mentorship, that just finding a good mentor is extremely valuable. Yeah, she wrote that out for me and went through the application with me, and we revised.
No, that's great. Thank you, Megan. And Akil.
Yeah, I had my former battalion commander write my recommendation for me. Someone who I think, as was mentioned, didn't just know me as a professional, but also my own trials and tribulations about deciding what to do next and where I can make the best impact. I think I think Bridgette hit on it well. Just as I commented about the essay process being not necessarily the same as your school essay, there could be a tendency too for your recommender. In my case, he was also writing my school recommendation, but the two are somewhat different. Certainly there are going to be similar themes, similar interests, but as Bridgette mentioned, emphasizing the multi-dimensional aspect to you beyond maybe your service, to include, as it states, the character itself, I think is really important. And the best part is, still get to keep in touch with him and help me along and continue that mentorship for many years after.
No. Again, thank you each for those inputs. And I think along those same lines, having your recommender go to our website and take a look at some of those resources is as an important of a step is for an applicant to do so as well. I very much love Megan's example of being able to have a conversation back and forth, and the assistance with that revision process only, I think, ties in a much more comprehensive and compelling application of what we're talking about. So awesome. Our next question is about one of the specific application requirements, which includes a request to provide some photos of you in your military uniform, or you and your significant other or the spouse in the military uniform, but you might not have any photos. What should you do? Tina, do you want to explain a little bit of the context of that particular requirement? And then we can look at some examples of what people offered.
Yes, this is another good question. Thank you for asking. If you don't have any, service pictures in uniform or with your spouse in a uniform, that the context behind that is we use this photo as your bio photo, essentially, for our website, for our class announcement. Also, just a little bit of background. Reviewers do not see the photos. They do not see your demographics or financial information, your background check, your bio. Those are all for my use once scholars are chosen. It's a pretty quick scramble at the end once we choose our scholars and getting everything prepped for class announcement, onboarding, and those sorts of things. So that's why we have to collect all this information at the upfront time. The tool that we use do not allow you to work on your application while we're reviewing. So if you don't have any pictures in uniform, a high quality picture is preferred. In a headshot, a professional headshot. We've had, even just last minute, someone taking a photo with their iPhone and sending that in. But we do like to have those in uniform and prefer that first.
Yeah, and we fully understand that. I mean, some cases in terms of service, someone's service could be with a sensitive unit, and there just aren't any pictures along those lines. So we do understand that. Any of the scholars, I don't know if any of y'all might have specifically had some issues with the photos or or things along those lines. If y'all want to jump in, please feel free to do so.
One last thing I do want to
Yeah.
before is you will also have an opportunity to update and submit an additional photo if selected as a scholar, just so you know.
No, great question. We'll actually move on to our next question. I think we have 2 more questions left. One, after graduation, do you stop being a Tillman Scholar? And if not, what does it look? Probably, does it feel any different? And how do you still stay involved with the community? Akil, I know both you and Bridgette are in your later years of your programs, but Rob, you and Megan are both done. How do y'all stay involved with the Rob, Megan?
Yeah, I'll jump on that one, JD. Can you guys hear me? So the number one way to stay involved is to continue to reach out to other scholars, continue to be engaged, continue to seek ways to help the foundation and so on. One of the most shocking things for me is so I had about a year or so left after I completed my degree on active duty before I retired. And I retired this past October. And as I was going through the retirement process, of course, you start your LinkedIn account and stuff like that to look for a job. And I had a discussion with a Tillman scholar who I met the weekend of the time when we came up for the Tillman Foundation, I'm drawing a blank on what it's called, the summit. So he actually asked, he said, "Hey, do you have a job lined up?" I told him no. And I said, I'm figuring it out. I'll find something. He didn't ask me a bunch more questions. The conversation turned to something else. And then the next day, a former staff member from the foundation who at the time was working at USA Basketball reached out via email and said, "Hey, I hear you you may be looking for a job. What's up? When? we need to talk. Can you call me tomorrow?" And I didn't ask for that. I was just having a small conversation with a friend, and he in his mind, he was going to help another scholar, right? He was going to find a way to be helpful, even if I didn't ask for it, because he knew if he told me, I probably wouldn't. And then so that's one example, right? But the foundation, as JD and Tina both mentioned, they consistently offer and seek ways to be helpful to you. Again, the scholarship is the smallest part. You'll be reminded of opportunities. You'll be offered opportunities from the foundation itself, but also from other scholars that, again, I did not see coming. And I've been a scholar for years now, and I'm consistently still surprised with how genuine and how passionate the pursuit of excellence that everyone in this foundation has, and that's the truth. Over.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for that.
Really well said. I'd say I think it's understood that you don't always have the time to fully engage while you're in your program. So I think the majority of how I've engaged is actually outside post-graduation. So I think you're always part of that community as much as you want to stay involved, and they can't get rid of me. So there's like our annual leadership summit that we have, that you have as like a first time or the first year scholar that you go to, and you get acquainted with your class, so to speak, and then with other scholars. There's the Make Your Mark talks that are probably my favorite part of the year, where we hear from other scholars and what they're putting out in the world, what they're doing with their research or what other type of work. There's other like leadership and learning opportunities throughout that they help provide, but mostly also, I'm a regional captain, so I help organize things that are in our own community here in Southern California, where I'm located. And it helps me kind of stay engaged with other scholars in our area. What do they need anything, or really just building friendships? I built some really deep and lifelong friendships from the Tillman Foundation. And without that, it's been a real blessing. I think there are so many ways you could stay connected. There's endless.
No, thanks for that, Megan. And as Megan said, she's a regional captain in Southern California. Rob is a regional captain in the North Carolina area. Akil is a regional captain up in Boston, right? And I know both Bridgette and Akil still finishing their degrees, but also still actively involved. Bridgette?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. If nothing else, if you pick one event or campaign that the foundation is hosting each year, I would say get involved. So if at a minimum you're going to the run or even hosting a satellite run each year, that's still staying connected. Being someone in Mississippi, I was the only active scholar in my state for the first, 2 years. And so it was a little lonely down there. And so it was like, when I'd go to events, part of it was to be able to connect with other scholars. So even beyond graduation, if you know that one time a year you will be at the summit or you will be at the run, those are still phenomenal events. And then Megan and I got to run into each other back after we met at the run and different things. So it's also kind of like a mini reunion.
It is. Thanks. Thanks for that, Bridgette. Akil?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, Megan. Your story about connecting with a recent scholar in school, I think, is phenomenal. And that's exactly what this community is about. And I think it's amazing. I know I feel it on my end. Fellows, many years removed, and maybe with a little more long-term perspective post-school who've already graduated, taking unconditional time to connect with current students as we start our own navigating of our interests and what we want to do impact-wise. So Megan, thanks for that. And that's common throughout the community. And I know something that I look forward to paying forward once I graduate.
Yeah, and as the foundation, we're constantly trying to be as flexible as possible. Obviously, this past year, really the past 12 months, that we have seen scholars on the front line of fighting the pandemic. We've also, as a community, experienced some of the constraints that pandemic has offered us. But in those same constraints, we're also finding different opportunities to be able to connect virtually, right? Some of the things that we've learned as a community in terms of using tools like Zoom to reach out, provide information, and provide meaningful connection. Well, that's what's bringing us here to you in this particular forum today. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Now, our final question that I think that we have, and we're almost at time as well, is something that a couple of scholars have already mentioned as well. So if somebody's selected, are there events that one is required to attend? And that's yes. We strongly encourage all scholars to come back to the Pat Tillman Leadership Summit. But those that are selected in that particular year, it's a requirement for them to attend that summit. Typically, we hold that in person in Chicago, usually the second or third week of July. And right now we are planning to do that in right around July 18th, 19th, 20th of 2021. If conditions are not safe to do so, we will do that virtually. That's what we had to do this past July. But the purpose of that leadership summit is really twofold. One is to integrate the new class of Tillman scholars within this community that's there. And two, it is also to highlight the work that community is doing. So we will have orientation sessions, we'll have, social integration activities, right? So this community can form, but at the same time, we'll ask returning scholars to come back and participate in panel discussions. Sometimes those panel discussions on how do you deal with the imposter phenomenon in a community of high achieving individuals. That we had that discussion a few years ago. Other discussions will be either timely, they will focus on problems that scholars are out there trying to solve, sharing the big ideas of what they are doing in the world too. So it's an important convening that is in fact there. We try to be as flexible as possible on that piece, as well as in the world of a pandemic, we will be as safe as possible as well. But that is going to be a requirement for folks to attend and participate as well. Tina, anything else you'd like to add on PTLS?
No, JD, thanks.
Cool. And then any other scholars? Rob, jump in there. You got it.
So I strongly recommend you do go, and you go every year you possibly can. I mean, you get to be in a room or in rooms with 59 other individuals, at least from your class, and a whole lot of others that be dedicated to helping others. Purely dedicated to becoming smarter and pursuing their goal, their pathway to service to others. And I can't think of a conference, a trip that has been more valuable to my life than showing up at that summit. And actually, the story I told a second ago, a few minutes ago, that was another scholar who was not in my class. He actually presented, and I introduced myself after he did a presentation, and that's how we met. I'll tell you, yeah, if you want to go, you want to go, I promise.
No, thanks for that, Rob. Any other thoughts or responses about PTLS and its importance from any of the other scholars?
I'll add to that. What I really enjoy about PTLS is the like lunch and learn sessions. I don't know what it's officially called, but you share a meal with people, whether it's from similar cohorts or from different educational backgrounds, or what problem you're trying to solve in the world. I learned a lot about people getting to sit down and eat lunch with someone that you only read about and you've admired. We have our own heroes within the foundation, people that we aspire to be like as scholars. And so that's an opportunity for you to just get to know them. So that's another chance. And then I'd also say the community service events are always a lot of fun too.
No, thanks for that, Bridgette. And Bridgette, you bring up a really great point. It's something that Megan referenced earlier as well. What we try to do is we try to create meaningful connections and as many cross-references as possible. So an incoming scholar, even before arriving to PTLS, will be paired up with a veteran scholar, if you will, that's usually in the same impact area or subject matter, similar subject matter expertise that they're developing, just to form a conversation, to start a relationship of just being able to say, hey, this is what you're about to go and do. This is what you can expect. And then during the social activities, during meals, we will organize regionally, right? We'll use geographic location to try and build connections. Other times it'll be focused in on, again, what you're studying. It could then also then be cross-referenced over in terms of different aspects of what you want to do, in the future, and using all those different sort of cross-references to, again, to build this community. It is a phenomenal time. It's inspirational to watch, and an absolute honor to be able to put together. But we are at an hour right now. Tina, any closing thoughts?
Just thank you everyone for your participation in this and attending. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at scholarships@pattillmanfoundation.org. I will, especially now as the application opens, the inbox is getting rather full, but I will get back to you just as soon as I can, generally within the first 24 to 48 hours. Look forward to reading your applications and getting to know more of you. Thank you again.
Indeed. And again, to our Tillman scholars, thank you so much. To our university partners that are out there, again, thank you for all that you do on a daily basis to make our partnerships a reality. And to all the interested applicants, best of luck to you. And please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you have a question, ask it. If you have a draft essay, revise it. Best of luck to you. And we do look forward to reading your applications soon. Again, that application window will open on Monday, February the 1st. Best of luck to you in all your endeavors. Thanks for joining us this evening.